The humid Georgia air clung to me like a second skin as I stepped out onto the porch. Just another Saturday afternoon, I thought, anticipating a quiet few hours tinkering in the garage. My son, Daniel, was usually out front, lost in his own world, meticulously arranging his collection of rocks or humming a tune only he could hear. Daniel is different. He's autistic, with a beautiful, innocent heart and a mind that works in ways I can barely comprehend. He's my whole world. But today, the porch was empty. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach. "Daniel," I called out, my voice automatically laced with gentle coaxing that only a parent of a special needs child truly understands. I scanned the yard, then my gaze drifted towards the property line I shared with Mrs. Elaine Thompson. Elaine, just the name sent a shiver of irritation down my spine. She was a queen bee of passive-aggressive commentary and thinly veiled bigotry in our otherwise peaceful neighborhood. She'd lived here for 20 years, and in the year we'd been her neighbors, she'd made her displeasure at our presence abundantly clear. And that's when I saw it, or rather, her. Elaine was standing over Daniel, who was seated on the grass, oblivious of the horror unfolding. In her hand, she held a pair of electric clippers, buzzing menacingly. Tufts of Daniel's dark curly hair lay scattered around him like fallen leaves. My blood ran cold. Rage, raw and untamed, erupted inside me. It was a primal fury, the kind that only a parent witnessing their child being violated can truly understand. I moved before I could think, my boots pounding against the grass as I surged towards them. "What in the hell do you think you're doing?" I roared, the force of my voice making Elaine jump. She turned, her face a mask of feigned innocence and condescending pity. "Oh, Alex," she said, her voice dripping with saccharine sweetness that only magnified my anger. "I was just helping your son. He really shouldn't be walking around looking like that." "Like what, Elaine?" I practically snarled, my hands clenching into fists. "Like, what do you think he looks like that warrants you taking a pair of clippers to his head without my permission?" "Without his permission," she huffed, adjusting her designer sunglasses. "Well, you know, with the way things are these days, he shouldn't be looking like a thug. It's just not safe for him." The implication hung in the air, thick and poisonous. "A thug," I repeated, the word laced with disbelief and disgust. "My son, he's autistic. Elaine, he wouldn't hurt a fly. And even if he wasn't, who are you to decide what he looks like or to touch him without our consent?" Daniel, startled by the commotion, began to whimper. He didn't understand what was happening, but he sensed the tension, the anger radiating from me and the strange woman hovering over him. He reached out for me, his eyes wide with fear. I immediately knelt down, pulling him close. "It's okay, Daniel," I whispered, stroking what was left of his hair. "Daddy's here. Here, you're safe." Elaine, however, remained undeterred. She seemed to revel in the confrontation, her eyes gleaming with malicious satisfaction. "You need to calm down, Alex," she said, her voice rising in pitch. "I was just trying to protect him. You should be thanking me." "Thanking you?" I exploded, rising to my feet again. The urge to grab those clippers and shave her head bald was almost overwhelming. "You assaulted my son. You violated him. You had absolutely no right to touch him." And that's when she did it. With a smug smirk, she reached into her oversized handbag and pulled out her phone. "I'm calling 911, she announced, her voice dripping with false indignation. "This man is attacking me." My jaw dropped. This was beyond ridiculous. This was insane. "You're calling 911? I echoed, incredulous. "You're the one who should be arrested. You just admitted to assaulting a disabled child." She ignored me, her thumb furiously tapping on the screen. "Yes, operator. I'm being attacked by a man on Maple Street," she said, her voice trembling theatrically. "He's threatening me. I'm afraid for my life." I wanted to laugh, but the situation was too serious. This woman, this embodiment of privilege and prejudice, was trying to weaponize the police against me, against my son. "You know what, Lane?" I said, taking a deep breath, trying to regain some semblance of control. "Go ahead, call them. I'll be right here." I knew I had to tread carefully. I couldn't let my anger get the better of me. I had to protect Daniel, to shield him from this woman's poisonous hatred. I pulled Daniel up and led him toward the house, away from Elaine and her phone. "Let's go inside, buddy," I said softly. "We'll wait for the police. Everything's going to be okay." He clung to me tightly, burying his face in my shirt. I could feel his small body trembling. We sat on the couch. Daniel nestled beside me as we waited. I tried to explain to him what had happened in simple terms, but I could see the confusion in his eyes. He didn't understand why Mrs. Thompson had cut his hair, but he knew it was wrong. The sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder and louder until 2 patrol cars pulled up in front of my house. 2 officers emerged, their hands instinctively hovering near their holsters. I stood up, bracing myself for the inevitable confrontation. "Sir, we received a call about a disturbance," one of the officers said, his voice professional but wary. "A woman reported being attacked." "I'm Alex Johnson," I said, holding my hands up in a gesture of peace. "I'm the one who called. That woman—" I pointed toward Elaine, who was standing on her lawn smirking smugly, "assaulted my disabled son. She was cutting his hair without our permission." The officers exchanged glances. They clearly weren't expecting this. "Ma'am, can you verify that?" one of the officers asked Elaine. She launched into her performance, her voice laced with tears. "I was just trying to help." He looked so unkempt. "I didn't want him to get into trouble. This man came out and—" She was yelling at me, threatening me. I was terrified. The officers looked back at me, their expressions unreadable. I knew what they were thinking. A black man yelling at a white woman. It was a stereotype as old as time. "Officer, with all due respect," I said, my voice calm and firm, "I am the police chief of this city, and that woman is lying." The effect was immediate. The officers' eyes widened in surprise, and the tension in their bodies seemed to dissipate. "Chief Johnson," one of them stammered, "we didn't realize—" I nodded, reaching into my pocket and pulling out my badge. "I assure you everything I've told you is the truth. That woman assaulted my son. I want her arrested." The officers quickly regained their composure. They approached Elaine, their demeanor now decidedly less friendly. "Ma'am, we need to hear your side of the story," one of them said, his voice firm. Elaine, seeing the shift in power, began to backtrack. "Well, I just wanted to help," she stammered, her confidence faltering. "I didn't mean any harm." "Ma'am, did you cut the child's hair without the parent's permission?" the officer pressed. Elaine hesitated, then mumbled, "Yes, but that's assault." "Ma'am," the officer said, cutting her off, "you're under arrest." The officers handcuffed Elaine and led her to the patrol car. Her face was a mask of disbelief and outrage. As they drove away, she glared at me, her eyes burning with hatred. I watched them go, a wave of relief washing over me. The immediate threat was gone, but I knew this was far from over. I went back inside and hugged Daniel tightly. "It's okay, buddy," I whispered. "She's gone now. You're safe." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The story of Elaine's actions and my role as the police chief spread like wildfire. The local news picked it up, then the national media. Suddenly, I was thrust into the spotlight, a symbol of justice and a target of hate. The city was divided. Some people praised me for standing up to racism and protecting my son. Others accused me of abusing my power, of using my position to get special treatment. The trial was a circus. Elaine's lawyer tried to paint her as a well-meaning, if misguided, neighbor who was simply trying to help. They argued that I was overreacting, that I was using my position to bully a defenseless woman. But the evidence was overwhelming. The witnesses, including the officers who responded to the scene, testified to Elaine's lies and her blatant disregard for Daniel's rights. The photographs of Daniel's half-shaved head spoke volumes. In the end, the jury found Elaine guilty of child endangerment and assault. The judge sentenced her to a year in jail, suspended, and ordered her to complete 500 hours of community service. But the real punishment, in my opinion, was the nature of the community service. The judge, Recognizing the underlying racism that fueled Elaine's actions, ordered her to work with underprivileged youth and volunteer at a black community center. The irony was delicious. Elaine, the woman who had judged and condemned my son based on the color of his skin, would now be forced to confront her prejudices head-on. She would be compelled to interact with people she had previously dismissed to understand their struggles and their humanity. I knew that community service wouldn't magically erase Elaine's racism, but I hoped it would be a start. I hoped it would force her to reevaluate her beliefs, to see the world through a different lens. As I walked away from the courthouse, I felt a sense of closure. I had protected my son, I had held Elaine accountable for her actions, and I had sent a message that racism would not be tolerated in my city. Daniel was waiting for me at home, his face beaming. He didn't fully understand the intricacies of the trial, but he knew that justice had been served. He knew that I had fought for him, that I had protected him. "Daddy, you're my hero," he said, wrapping his arms around my legs. My heart swelled with pride and love. "And you, son, are mine," I replied, hugging him tightly. The scars of that day will always remain, but they will serve as a reminder of the strength of our bond, the power of justice, and the importance of fighting for what is right, even when it's difficult. And maybe, just maybe, Elaine Thompson will learn a valuable lesson about respect, empathy, and the true meaning of community.